Well, hello, I'm Rick Balkin. I'm a professor here at the University of Mississippi in the School of Education. I'm housed in the Department of Leadership and Counselor Education. I've been here since 2017, and I've been in academia since 2003. And I am the Assistant Department Chair for Leadership and Counselor Education, and I am the Coordinator for Educational Research and Design for the School of Education. I generally teach a lot of the research methods and statistics courses, but I'm also a counselor at heart. I'm a licensed professional counselor, a national certified counselor. I've been very active in the counseling profession, and particularly in the American Counseling Association and the Association for Assessment and Research and Counseling, as well as other divisions within ACA. And I recently wrote a book on forgiveness called Practicing Forgiveness, A Path Toward Healing. So I'm really excited about this because it's a different kind of writing for me. Instead of writing a textbook, which I've done some research textbooks and assessment textbooks, this is a book for everybody. And so it was a different style of writing and a different type of passion that I got to tap into. And I tell people, yeah, you can read me, talking about statistics and research, but this is the real me here. So so I'm excited to come and talk about it.
Awesome. That was actually, you sort of answered one of the questions, which was going to be my first question. I'll ask it again, just so if you want to expound upon that or change anything you just said. But my first question was going to be, you've written academic texts before, but this one's different. So who is this book for?
So that's a great question because, I start off talking about, I really tried to bridge a gap here between counselors or clinicians and just lay people, people who are just interested in exploring their own journey with forgiveness. And so this was real exciting because that's a tough that's tough to do in your writing. At least for me, it was. It was tough to say, okay, I want to move this away from the clinician and from the academics, and have just the average person read this, and but still be interesting, have something of interest for both parties. And I think I did okay in that balancing act. I told my editor up front, this is what I'm aiming for, and he was really supportive. He felt like I did that. So there's things like the appendix that I provide, some of the more technical information that maybe clinicians would be interested in. But then the body of the book is really focused on how to make this idea of forgiveness and this model of forgiveness and this way of going about forgiveness and examining our own feelings and beliefs about it practical for everyone.
That's great. And you kind of touched on this a little bit too, but you talk about, forgiveness in your counseling terms and your experiences. And can you walk us through how you came to study forgiveness and, looking at your research interests, how did they evolve over time for you to now write a book about forgiveness?
Yeah, well, my formative experience comes from working with adolescents in acute care psychiatric programs. These were adolescents who were all a danger to self, danger to others. They were hospitalized, usually around 2 weeks. The average length of stay was 5 to 7 days, but it was intense. And some of them were going through substance abuse withdrawal. Some of them were going through severe depression and suicidality. Some of them were in gangs and just had a long history of antisocial behavior. And I worked with a lot of clients, mostly female clients, who had been survivors of physical and sexual abuse. And it was through this work and this one particular client, back around 1998, that got me on this journey. And I talk about this in the book. I give the client a pseudonym. I call her Sheila. And Sheila was sexually abused by her father. And not everybody was supporting Sheila. In particular, her mother wasn't really supporting Sheila. Her father was denying the allegations, and even though he was removed from the home, and the allegations were compelling, he was denying them. And I ended up going to court over this case, which, that is an experience in and of itself. But when I'm doing the first family session with the mom and the daughter, the mom looks at the daughter when the daughter first enters the room, and she says to Sheila, she says, as a Christian, you have to forgive him. And I look at the mom and I'm like, wouldn't that be convenient for you? And she's like seething at me, like, what did you say to me? And I'm like, well, then you don't have to choose between your daughter's disclosure and your husband's denial. It can all just get swept under the rug. And it was a really just hard family session. It doesn't have a really great outcome. I mean, it doesn't. I mean, the outcome that you want is you want for Sheila to be safe. But Sheila's not going to be safe and supported in her current home environment. She's going to have to go somewhere else. And so it's not this rosy picture of family reunification. It's a much harder visualization of what happens to kids who are not supported when they come out with allegations of sexual abuse. And Sheila was one of those cases. But this idea of, as a Christian, you have to forgive him. I mean, it was such a nuanced statement, moms wanting to just bring the family back together. And that is a convenient solution for her, but it's not a healthy solution for Sheila. And I call her on that. And but at the same time, in the back of my mind is that even true? I don't know. I'm not Christian. I'm Jewish. And it's not until like 5 years later, after I've gotten my doctorate and I've moved to McKinney, Texas, and I join a synagogue and I'm attending Yom Kippur services and I'm going to a study group afterwards where we're talking about this Jewish conceptualization of forgiveness. And I get introduced to this idea. The Hebrew word is called mechila. A lot of people have trouble saying that. They can say mechila. I was like, no, it's not mechila, it's mechila. And you know how you get that sound, like you're getting a loogie out, mechila. And a lot of people don't like to make that sound. They think that's a gross sound, but that's the way it's pronounced in Hebrew. So anyway, this idea of mechila refers to wiping away debt, because sometimes you can't make restitution. You can't make things right. Slander, abuse, all of these things, neglect. These are elements that you can't just make right. You can't, it's not like breaking somebody's lawnmower and repairing it and going, oh, we're good now. It's not like that. It's wow, what I want from you, I'm not going to get. What I wanted from you, trust, love, care, safety, security. I'm not going to get that. And so what I want from you, I'm not going to get. So I'm not going to expect it anymore. And I thought, whoa, how powerful, because it's not this interpersonal forgiveness that we often think about, where we reconcile and renegotiate the relationship and make our relationship stronger. That is a type of forgiveness, and I talk about that. But it's this intrapersonal journey where sometimes we seek forgiveness by no longer wishing ill will upon the individual and moving forward with the strength of, I'm okay and I've moved on, but I'm not reconciling this relationship with anybody. I simply don't wish this person ill will anymore. I'm not haunted by this experience. And I thought that's a type of forgiveness that we don't talk about. And how we decide to reconcile and renegotiate a relationship, this interpersonal process, versus mechila, this intrapersonal process, I thought that's a fascinating journey that people have to make. And we don't talk about that. And that's how I got excited. That's how I got into this, was from this experience as an adolescent counselor and getting my doctorate and learning about research and thinking of and then conceptualizing this model of forgiveness. So it's not a short answer. It all bridges together for me.
Yeah, thank you. Well, so like I said, it's not a short answer. There are a lot of different factors going in there that have led to this, find the culmination of this.
Yeah.
But is there anything in particular about this moment? Like, why now? Like, how did this arrive in this moment?
Yeah, that's interesting. As I told you, my area was adolescent counseling and outcomes, and I did a lot of research in that area, and I have over a decades of research in this particular area, almost 2 decades now, and I'd go and I'd do national presentations, and have like 6 people show up in my session at a national conference. It's like, okay, these are the people who are interested. And then I had, discovered this area of forgiveness, and I wrote a conceptual article. It wasn't even data driven. It was just like, let me introduce this Jewish conceptualization of forgiveness based on this idea of mechila, because no one had ever talked about it in this way before. And I produce a model, just this theoretical model based on what's out there on forgiveness, drawing a lot from Robert Enright and Everett Worthington, and taking their ideas and molding it into this, how does the Jewish conceptualization of forgiveness work? And I published this article in Counseling and Values in 2009, and I write up a presentation, and it gets accepted. And I'm like, that's great. I had 120 people show up. And I'm like, wow, this is really important. And then that article gets sent to the Ecumenical Center in San Antonio. And they call me up and they're like, would you do a 6-hour workshop for us? And I'm like, a 6-hour workshop, And at this point in time, I'm like, well, I have this model. Let's measure it. Let's see if I can get some empirical evidence about what I'm thinking here. And I do. I develop an instrument based on this model, and people really dug it. And I do this 6-hour workshop, and then I did a presentation with the American College Counseling Association. And I have counselors and psychologists and social workers sitting in this presentation, and I'm showing them this measure, and they're excited. They're like looking at the profile that comes out from it, and they're like, wow, this is like the MMPI, which is this major personality inventory that's used in our field. And I was like, I never thought of it that way before, but they're really digging it. And I could see the enthusiasm from researchers, from clinicians, and from people who just wanted to learn more about this. And it produced the challenge of, how do I get this out there? And I thought, I'm sitting down with this editor, Dana Bliss from Oxford University Press. He takes me out to dinner. I had written an assessment book with them, and collaborated with Jeffrey Kotler on another book. And he says to me, what are you working on? And I said, let me tell you this idea. And I tell him this idea about this book. I said, it's not a textbook. I don't even know if you're interested in this. He's like, I love it. Okay, so I just went through the process of writing a proposal and pitching it. And Oxford University Press mainly publishes textbooks. They'll take on a few trade books a year, but this was one of them. This is one they got excited about, and marketing was excited about it. And I'm like, oh, okay, let's give it a shot. So that's kind of how this came about. And it was really just, like a lot of things in my life, just a synthesis of events.
And going off of that too, when I was reading the book, it was really interesting because I could hear your voice speaking to me. Of course, you've been my professor, so I know a little bit about you and your style. But one thing that I think that readers are really going to get out of this book is they join you in your own forgiveness journey as well. You share some stories of personal instances where you had to reflect about forgiveness, and we were wondering, how has your forgiveness journey, over the past 2 decades with studying forgiveness, how has it evolved over time, especially as you're writing and publishing the book?
Yeah, I mean, I think that I probably conceptualize forgiveness very similarly to other people who, you automatically go to this place of how do I make this right with someone? How do I fix this relationship with someone? And it's this relational process. So, when I first learned about Mechila and then dove into Enright's work on intrapersonal forgiveness, I thought, this is different. This is a different way of looking at it, and it's very empowering because if you're a survivor of abuse, you don't want to necessarily renegotiate a relationship with the person who harmed you. Sometimes those people don't change, and so this was a different type of empowerment that I really grasped onto. It got me thinking of times when either I wanted to reconcile and I couldn't. I tell a story about a bicycle accident that I have. I actually tell the story in the third person, talking about Rick's bicycle accident. That was March 11th, 2006. So, and I'm in that bicycle accident. I'm riding my bicycle and I get clipped from behind by a pickup truck. And it's horrible. I remember, I don't remember the hit, but I do remember rolling. I remember rolling on the ground and thinking about it and not really being cognizant of why I'm rolling on the ground, and then stopping rolling and trying to stand up and not being able to, and having the shooting pain go down my leg, and then watching a truck pull off the side and realizing this truck pulling off the side hit me. And then this woman jumping out of her truck or her car and yelling, "Stay down, stay down." And I remember her asking me if there's anybody she can call, and I'm trying to calmly give her my wife's cell phone number. And but what I remember most from this experience, I remember the ambulance coming. I remember being put on the stretcher. I remember being dragged up this hill. But the most poignant memory is the person who hit me holding my hand, and tears are coming down his face, and he says, "I didn't see him. I didn't see him." And I just remember his grip on my hand. Afterwards, I'm in this boot. I want to reach out to him, and I have this police report, and it has his address. And I go and I buy a 6-pack of beer because I want to let him know I'm okay. And I thank him for stopping and for being there. And I show up to the address, and it's this huge apartment complex, and there's no number. There's no apartment number. And it's like, I can't find him. I can't see him. There's no phone number. There's nothing. I have no way to reach this person. And so it's this reconciliation I wanted to have that I was never able to have. That to me was such a that all happens before the writing of the book, but it applied so eloquently.
Thank you for that. What would you say is one main takeaway that you would want, any person, whether it's a clinician or just a lay person, as you said, to take away from reading this book?
Yeah. I'm gonna nerd out on you a little bit. All right.
Please.
Sure. Um, Two takeaways. All right. You have Darth Vader and you have Lord Voldemort. All right. All right. Darth Vader's a bad dude. He destroys planets. All right. But spoiler alert, he's going to reconcile with Luke. He's going to look at him with his own two eyes. He's going to take off his mask. He's going to come back to the light side of the Force. And he's going to become a Force ghost. He's going to be Anakin again. All right. There is remorse, there's change, and there is healing. And then you have Lord Voldemort. He's a bad dude too. Murders a lot of wizards. Murders muggles too, by the way. He's just a murderer. All right. And he's power hungry. And he kills Harry's parents. And he wants to kill Harry. All right? And we lose a lot of good characters in Harry Potter. You know, there's some hard deaths to deal with. And when you get to the end, Lord Voldemort has not redeemed himself at all. Right? Right? He's a bad guy to the bitter end. And yet, does healing occur to Harry? Is Harry this fractured soul who's angry at the world for losing his parents? No, he's not. All right. Harry's going to marry his sweetheart from Hogwarts, and he's going to have kids, and he's going to name his kids after his wizard heroes. And, and then we're going to get a sequel in the form of a play on Broadway, which is awesome as well. So, but we're going to see a healed person. So this journey can happen with this wonderful anecdote of reconciliation, but it can also happen through a very much of an intrapersonal process, an individual journey, where you become at peace with what's happened and you're still able to move forward. And I think, and figuring out that journey, that's the crux of the book. I present a model and it goes one way or the other. And it's not just, are you going to reconcile? Are you a reconciling person or not? No, each situation is unique. If imagine being a teenager and you bring a friend home and that friend steals $20 out of your parents' wallet. And your parent finds out and says, that person is never allowed in our house again. I'm like, okay, I get that. Versus you come home with your cousin and your cousin steals $20 out of the aunt or uncle's wallet. Now we got to have a talk. We got to figure this out. The same instance, the same event, but a very different response based on the context of the situation. I give examples of infidelity. Experiencing infidelity, 3 months into a relationship, we're done. All right. What about 20 years into a relationship? Oh, that's a little different, isn't it? So, again, these are context-driven events, and so I tell folks, you ask for 1 point, I'm going to give you 2. Don't ever label yourself as a forgiving or unforgiving person. Understand that each situation is unique and based on a different context. And so you can apply different rules to very similar situations based on the context. That's okay.
Excellent. Dr. Balkin, do you have anything else that you want to add or contribute? Or if there's a question that you're dying to answer, you can ask it and
It's a
answer
question.
it.
Yeah.
So,
I think, let me think for a second here. A lot of people ask, do they have to forgive? And I talk in the book a bit about anger, and that anger gets a bad rap. Anger can be very empowering. And sometimes we hold on to anger, and we hold on to anger for reasons. I talk about anger being a secondary emotion to fear. That when someone's angry, I like to ask them, what are you afraid of? I'm not afraid of anything. Oh, really? Okay. When was the last time you got angry? I got angry with my teenager. Why? Well, they wouldn't clean their room. What are you afraid of? I'm not afraid of anything. You're afraid they're going to be lazy. You're afraid that they're not going to respect authority. All right. You're afraid that the refusal to do what you ask has nothing to do with what you're asking the kid to do, but it's a reflection of your relationship. What does it mean when your kid looks at you and says, no, I'm not going to do what you say? That's a very different concern than, oh, you're just not cleaning your room and that's ticking me off. No. It goes to the heart of the relationship. You're not listening to me. And so that is fearful. It's fearful when our kids stop listening to us. Yeah. So I talk about this notion of fear, and what do we do when we experience fear? Well, we get defensive. A lot of ways to do that. We avoid, we deny, it's not a problem. It's okay. Everything's fine. We project. We go, it's not my fault. It's that person's fault over there. This is why this problem exists. I didn't do anything wrong. Sometimes we forget nothing happened. So there's, and sometimes we get angry. Right? And so we have these defense mechanisms. And, when we're being defensive, rather than say, well, I need to quit being defensive and I just need to open up to this process. Well, hold on a second. Maybe you're defensive for a reason. Maybe you're trying to protect yourself from further harm. Particularly in relationships that involve forgiveness on the interpersonal side. Maybe the reason you're not ready to renegotiate this relationship is that you've made the decision to forgive, but emotionally you're not there. You're not ready. And you don't trust this person. You don't believe they have remorse and have changed their way. And you're protecting yourself. And I think that that's okay. This isn't something that we do, at the snap of a finger. Forgiveness is a journey. It's a process. And we do it when we're ready to do it.
Thank you so much, Dr. Balkin, for joining Kelly and myself and telling us just all about the process of this book in the making. And thank you for your insights so much. We appreciate it.
Hey, thank you for having me. This has been a blast, and really appreciate the opportunity to talk about it. So thank you all.